What do you get when you don't know how to start a review video that isn't a review video? You get whatever the hell I am trying to do now. For this month, instead of reviewing the first few chapters of a story available on Manta, I have been asked to talk about this new function that has become available on the app since December 16th of this year. So, for background, Manta is primarily an app that hosts Korean web comics in V-scrolling style that are translated in English. I am unsure if there are any other languages that exist for this, but moving on. According to Wikipedia, Manta launched in November of 2020 and it was one of the very few subscription-based apps available for reading webcomics. Most places usually do the whole pay for each chapter you want to read thing, so the subscription service was kind of a breath of fresh air for those who couldn't afford the alternative. Though now Manta does have some stories that you have to use gems to pay to read the story, it is still mainly a subscription-based stories, with many of their biggest named titles being free to read with just the subscription alone. And now for the main topic of the video, the novels. Many of these webcomics were originally based on web novels, probably popular enough to eventually get an official release as a visual medium. And weirdos like me love to read the original version of stories. There are many times when one reads an adaptation, you feel like you're missing some context. I've had this feeling many times over the years, not only from comics, but movies, books that are based around older fairy tales, even history, mythologies, and religion. There is always that part of something that doesn't seem to make sense in the context that was presented in the story that can annoy some more of the odd readers out there. Thankfully, with more modern stories, it's most of the time relatively easier to find the original source. Now, finding the original source of the inspiration of said stories is a different kind of beast altogether. One of the first stories that I read on Manta, and also the first story that made me question what I was reading, was The Golden Forest. This is a story about a little girl who is both blessed and cursed by the goddess Inanna, also more well known as Ishtar later in our world history. Inanna is most remembered as the goddess of love, sex, and fertility, but she is also known to be the goddess of war. And this is what starts this story, the prophecy that is given to our main character, the 7-year-old slave Renier. Now, I wasn't able to record, pages of the actual book of the Golden Forest on the app on Manta, but thankfully, before Manta ever posted it on their app, Kindle had it in their just in the library, and so this is like I would say anyone who's interested should probably pause this to read this. This is very interesting, especially considering that it was this was written specifically by a professor at a university. So I find that fascinating. Um, but yeah, you can see in the prologue here it's the story is mostly written in a third person, but the prologue is specifically written in Renier's point of view, and you can see her talking to the old priestess and how she tries to in bolded letter, that's her talk gets the priestess talking to her with the prophecy and stuff like that, and Renier literally tries to go against it because she's an orphan and so she believes that she shouldn't have, you know, she doesn't want trouble in life. And yet this is where she tries to make a fake prophecy to, protect herself, which obviously doesn't work considering we have this entire story that exists. Yeah, and so on and so forth, the story just goes on. Of course, with most adaptations, there will be some differences. In the novel, Renier is a bully for most of the story, unlike in the webcomic. She does this to make herself less attractive to men because of the blessing slash curse. So she basically disguises herself as a guy as a way of protection. Also, the beginning is a bit different. In the novel, we obviously get the prologue chapter where Renier gets the prophecy from the old woman. We also get an abridged version of her entire childhood before she is sold off to the Golden Forest. In the webcomic version, the prophecy and her childhood is drip fed to us during the 2 weeks that she saves the male lead Kun. My confusion with the story comes from a part later that has to do with one of the two men who will love her and the two men who will save her and end her life. But that is as much as I'll reveal. I understand other people don't like spoilers, weirdos, but I will say that a side story at the end of the main series answers my questions that I kept bugging me the whole time I was reading the webcomic. I at first really disliked this story, but my curiosity gave me reasons to search out the novel. I came to like this story after a while, but I wonder if it's not because of the story, but because of how oddly innocent Kun is, and the mythology is primarily Mesopotamian. It being very different from the offshoot, not so subtle Christianity analog. Like my very favorite story on Manta, it has a more unique setting that doesn't have the same vaguely Christian analog. So it's a kind of like a breath of fresh air to get something completely different. There are also many other novel versions of popular webcomics available on Manta. For example, my review from last month, Under the Oak Tree, and also other stories I've mentioned in my past reviews: Predatory Marriage, Finding Camellia, I Raised a Black Dragon, and Tempest Night. Altogether, there are 40 novels you can now enjoy on Manta, available in both chapter by chapter format, or you can buy the full volumes. As for the new functions of novels, you can either be like moi, waiting for the full volume or for the whole story to be complete before reading in case you also are the obsessive read it until it ends type. Or if you're okay with waiting week to week to read, they now have a thing where you can buy the individual chapters as they drop. This all comes down to what you prefer as your personal reading experience. I'm not you. You guys, you do you. I do understand that stories that are published in a more bit by bit sense like this, week to week, tends to do better with audiences. I don't know all of the marketing terms, but I understand why platforms would post like how TV shows airs their episodes. These are my real thoughts though. I am not sure how I should end this video, so here are some of my favorite images.